Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an idea that honestly completely flips the script on how we measure achievement. We're asking a pretty big question. What does it really take to build a success that lasts? Not just a quick win, but true, enduring success. We're going to explore a framework that argues real victory isn't about crushing your competitors this quarter. It's about achieving what's called the ideal state. Let's just get right into it.
So think about this for a second. What if the secret to lasting success relies just as much on who you marry as it does on your business strategy? It's a wild thought, right? We're taking a huge step away from the usual hustle culture today. Normally when we talk success, we jump straight to profit margins, scaling, productivity hacks, all that stuff. But the source material we're looking at takes a much more holistic approach. It actually suggests that if your personal foundation is built on fleeting desires, well, your professional empire is pretty much doomed to collapse.
Our explainer today is grounded in Ryuho Okawa's The Laws to Achieve Eternal Success. This book lays out a truly fascinating philosophy. It argues that true success isn't just a temporary financial spike or, a stroke of good luck. Instead, it defines success as an eternal condition. It's a state of being that bridges this world and the next. It's all about building character and a life that endures way beyond the immediate moment.
To get to this eternal success, the author starts surprisingly small. Like micro-level small. It's so interesting because he argues you literally cannot achieve a macro-level ideal state in your career if your personal life is a total mess. And the absolute most critical personal choice you're going to make, according to the text, it's your life partner.
Now, the author makes a very sharp, very deliberate distinction here between romantic love and marital love. Think about romantic love for a minute. It's this subjective peak, right? Driven by intense, fleeting passion that honestly often burns out pretty early on. Marital love, though, that's a completely different beast. It requires a cold, clear, truly objective understanding of the other person. It demands intellectual balance and the actual practical capacity for long-term coexistence. Basically, it's a massive shift from purely subjective feeling to an objective partnership.
The source gets incredibly specific, and honestly a little blunt about this. It specifically warns against choosing a partner solely on physical appearance. I mean, imagine marrying someone who looks like Miss Universe, just for the aesthetic, only to sit down at dinner and realize there is absolutely zero foundation for a real conversation. That's exactly where objective wisdom has to override subjective passion. It's crazy that this crucial choice isn't taught in schools, because it dictates your entire life's trajectory. The text also throws in a warning that an excessive focus on dual careers can sometimes severely strain this intellectual bond, which can lead to discord or even infidelity. The end goal has to be deep mutual understanding.
Okay, so you've built a rock-solid personal foundation based on objective understanding. That is step one. But what happens when the world throws a massive curveball? Let's zoom out from the living room to the boardroom and look at how we can weather the inevitable hardships in business without entirely losing our footing. Because, let's face it, no matter how prepared you are, the storms are going to come.
To explain this, the author uses a brilliant, completely counterintuitive metaphor for economic hardship. He compares it to drowning. Think about human instinct for a second. When you're drowning, your immediate, totally natural reaction is to panic, right? You thrash around, you fight the water. But as the text points out, thrashing just makes you swallow water and sink even faster. The life-saving move, the counterintuitive move, is actually to sink your head, let the water's natural buoyancy lift you up, and just wait patiently.
So, translating that to business, the crucial move during tough economic times is to develop what the author calls an immovable heart. Instead of forcing aggressive, panicked moves during a recession, we need to act like a deeply rooted tree. It's a vital progression from absolute panic to quiet patience. You endure the immediate threat without making fatal, reactive mistakes.
In this patience, it isn't just about waiting out the weekend. We are talking about strategic endurance. The author notes that having the discipline and the character to weather a storm for 2 to 3 years without forcing a premature move, well, that is the absolute hallmark of a truly great leader. While everyone else is exhausting their resources thrashing around in the water, the leader with an immovable heart quietly endures, just waiting for the perfect moment to emerge with this deeply rooted resilience.
But here's the thing. Surviving the storm is only half the battle. What happens when the sun comes back out and growth resumes? How do we prevent our renewed ambition from becoming a destructive force? This brings us to the core focus of the text's 5th chapter. We're zooming all the way out to the macro level to discuss the ideal state of a successful business. And, spoiler alert, it requires that exact same objective wisdom we just talked about needing in a marriage.
Just like in a relationship, business requires a fiercely objective view. The text warns that simply declaring, "Hey, my store and products are the best," is nothing but a subjective delusion. True success means evaluating your operation with the cold, hard reality of the open market. You have to recognize the reality of your own limits and the actual, measurable value you are providing to other people.
Chapter 5 is all about this ideal state. And to see this subjective wisdom in action, the author points directly to the legendary steel magnate Andrew Carnegie. Let's look at his philosophy.
Carnegie's famous epitaph proves a really vital point. It reads, "Here lies a man who knew how to enlist the service of better men than himself. Reaching the ideal state isn't about doing everything yourself because your ego tells you to. It's about using objective wisdom to acknowledge your own limits. Then you go out and gather people who are actually more capable than you are, and you empower them. It's the ultimate realization that true growth means stepping entirely outside your own subjective ego."
The text is incredibly direct about what happens if we lack this objectivity. We fall right into the trap of subjective greed and blind optimism. The author points out that while a glass-half-full mentality is perfectly fine for a single person going about their day, applying it to something like a massive national debt is just incredibly irresponsible. He also reminds us to look objectively at big institutions. Like, remember that powerful banks aren't magical wealth creators. They are literally running on debt management using citizens' borrowed money. Excessive, unchecked greed that completely disconnects from reality, it will always eventually destroy the organization. Always.
Which finally brings us to the ideal state, or Arabeki Sugata. The ideal state is reached only when we balance our intense ambition for development with deep, objective wisdom. Again, it's the exact same objective wisdom required to choose a life partner built on mutual understanding. It means keeping our personal and our organizational greed totally in check. And why? So that the true wealth we generate doesn't just sit hoarded in a subjective silo, but actually circulates outward to genuinely uplift and benefit all of society. That's the whole point. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to really look at the foundations you're laying right now in your own life. Are you building your relationships and your business on the fragile ground of subjective passion? Or are you ready to cultivate that immovable heart and the objective wisdom needed for the ideal state? Because the storms will inevitably come. When they do, will your success be eternal? Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep striving for that enduring wisdom.